You know, it really bugs me when some jerk does this in my neighborhood, but this week, Bob and I... A little early. You know, it really bugs me when some jerk does this in my neighborhood, but this week, Bob and I think it's appropriate.
TSN's Motoring 97 is brought to you by Quaker State. The big Q stands for quality, always has, always will. And Midas, the way it should be.
This week we're in Phoenix, Arizona. This is site of one of the most reputable driving schools in North America, the Bob Bondurant School of High Performance Driving. Now, believe me, there's a lot of excitement going on here today. We've got media from all over North America. In fact, Bob has even closed down this facility just for this event. Now, I wish I could tell you this event is to announce a brand new high-performance vehicle, but alas, we're here to see the launch of a brand new tire. That's right, I said a tire. And when was the last time you got excited about tires? Now, it's true, most people today don't really appreciate the technology that has gone into today's tires. Well, Goodyear is here to launch not one but two brand new tires, and what we've discovered is that maybe the times are a-changing and people are beginning to realize that there's more to tires than just being round and black.
Since he can remember, Bob Bondurant has been in the driver's seat, winning races around the world, including at Le Mans, rubbing shoulders with the who's who on and off the track. This year, he is celebrating his 29th year as one of the world's #1 driving instructors.
Came down to Phoenix about 7 years ago and designed and built this facility strictly for training. And we have a road course, we have a paddock area, we have all of our basic maneuvers laid out, skid control, panic stops, threshold braking, ABS braking, heel and toe down shifting, everything it takes to drive a car correctly on the street with control and also on the racetrack. So what we really teach here is maximum car control. Though we have a lot of fun doing it, we've trained over 55,000 people so far in that length of time, and it's great. I love it. It's still fun after all that time.
While giving journalists the opportunity to pick up driving tips, Goodyear was really hoping they'd appreciate the rubber they were driving on, Goodyear's newest performance tire, the F1 GS.
I've often been quoted as saying the tires are sort of the Rodney Dangerfield of the automotive industry. You know, you kick them every once in a while to make sure they got air in them. They wear out too fast, they cost too much. But that tire determines, I don't care if you've got a Ferrari F50 on 1959 Studebaker tires, it's going to handle like a 1959 Studebaker. You can take that to the bank. There was a period in time when the consumer who purchased a new automobile assumed that the tire that came in that automobile was probably sort of the ho-hum lowest priced product in the marketplace. But automobiles have changed substantially. They're more maneuverable. They're capable of higher stopping power, higher cornering power, higher starting power. They're getting more horsepower out of less cubic inches. Much more sophisticated. But the good news is, as that automobile becomes more technically sophisticated from a chassis design standpoint, the tire becomes a critical part of the program, an integral part of the suspension geometry. So these days in new cars, the tire is premium quality almost invariably. I think it was Christian Fittipaldi once said that the tires are about 80% of his ability to turn a fast lap.
5 years ago, performance tires represented about 25% of the total market. Today it's almost a third of the market.
The tire we're introducing in conjunction with our Eagle signature brand is our other signature brand, the Wrangler line. The Wrangler line is a very popular line that can be found on most popular sports vehicles, pickup trucks, four-wheel drive, which is one of the fastest growing segments of the market in North America today.
thing that worries me most when I'm on a 4-lane highway, speeding along, it's pouring rain, traffic comes to a major halt in front of me, which invariably happens. I know I'm going to get stopped. The thing that worries me most is that the guy behind me was sold, even talked into buying the lowest level product for his car as possible because he's going to end up in my trunk. And that's a bad scene. Tires are an important part of the automobile.
Final question. Salesmen sell cars. You think at dealerships they should have someone who looks after the tires? Do you think it's something that's overlooked at that level?
Oh, I think it is. I think most people, so they're salesmen and the customers too, they just go buy a car because it looks swoopy, it's got neat color for them and all that. But I think more and more people are becoming aware of, hey, there's a little fatter tire on that car. It looks better. Wow. Also, guess what? It handles better. More rubber on the ground, more tire patch, safety, better handling, better braking, better cornering, and bottom line is more fun, along with the safety.
The optional radio on the C70 is worth a mention because while it takes its own sweet time to load up the CDs, it's well worth the wait because this is the first factory installed unit with Dolby surround sound and Pro Logic. And trust me, it's one of the finest sounding units available today. The term stylish Volvo was once considered an oxymoron. Well, not anymore. This week on Test Drive, we take a look at the car that's going to change the image. This is the all-new C70.
Volvo's path away from the straight and boxy was led by a fellow Brit by the name of Peter Horbury. At the launch, he quipped that this time around Volvo were going to ditch the box and keep the toy. That they have done. Indeed, you must look long and hard to find a straight line anywhere, the only readily identifiable one being the diagonal slash on the grille. Behind the grille lies the motivational force, a 236 horsepower inline-5 that uses a heavy-duty turbo. I say heavy-duty because the turbocharger blows in excess of 20 pounds per square inch boost through the motor. The engine also offers plenty of torque. While it peaks at 243 pounds-feet, the whole kit and caboodle is there from 2700 RPM to redline. Nail the gas pedal and be prepared to hang on because the C70 scoots and rests to highly illegal speeds in short order, even with the automatic found in our tester. The box itself is a 3-mode electronically controlled 4-speed. In the sport mode, each gear is held for maximum effect. Normal betters fuel mileage, while the winter mode forces the box to pull away in second gear, which limits the wheel spin in slippery conditions. The C70 features McPherson struts up front and Volvo's patented semi-independent Delta Link design in back. Tom Walkinshaw, who's famous as the owner of Damon Hill's new ride, fine-tuned the geometry and selected the Mammoth 225/45/17 tyres. The effect is nothing short of extraordinary considering this is a luxury car. Body roll is next to non-existent, understeer only shows up at the edge of the envelope, and thanks to the toe-correcting nature of the rear suspension, fast cornering is both smooth and stable. Perhaps the only downfall is that the handling characteristics have been given too much priority. The result is that the ride comfort is going to be a little on the harsh side for the average punter.
The trunk on the C70 has been very well thought through. First of all, it's large, the lift over is low, and it's nicely squared off. The other thing they've done, these cantilever hinges allow them to get the deck lid right the way back and out of the way. No fear of bashing your head when you're loading the trunk. On the plus side, there's a ski path through. The negative side, no split folding rear seats.
Inside, the smooth flowing theme continues with all contours blending together nicely. As for power items, they range from locks and windows through an 8-way driver's seat with 3-position memory to remote releases for fuel and trunk. The instrumentation is large and logical, as are the climate controls.
For a coupe, there's quite a lot of room in the back, and Volvo have added a power slide forward feature to ease your exit out. But guess what? As with every other coupe, getting out of this thing, well, suffice it to say, you can't get out with dignity or ease.
On the safety front, the C70 comes with Volvo's side impact protection system, meaning side airbags as well as the usual driver and passengers. They also get a washer-wiper system that keeps the view ahead clear. Stopping power comes from a four-wheel disc brake system that features full anti-lock. The stops are short, straight, and even after extensive use in hilly terrain, they remain fade-free. Braking distances average 114 feet from 80k.
While it may be a little foggy in Santa Barbara, Volvo's thinking was anything but. They ditched Renault, great move. Brought on Walkinshaw, equally good move. The result, a car that will have a halo effect over the entire Volvo brand. Before wrapping up our long-term 626, we're going to take a look at the fit and finish. Now typically this is where the Japanese excel, and Mazda is no exception. All the gaps between the panels are uniform, the paint is flawless, the material's top-notch, and the car is well screwed together today as it was when we picked it up. So why then has the 626 been a sales disappointment? It's not because of the V6 engine. It's certainly not because of the quality, nor can it be attributed to the dynamic ability, price or warranty. Well, that leaves just but one thing, and that's interior volume. Now in the rear seat, the dimensions are very snug, and up front, elbow room's at a premium. That's the bad news. The good news? The next generation of Mazda 626 will have the interior volume to compete.
Jim Kenzie was a special guest at Maranello Motors in Toronto recently. Kenzie is one of several journalists around the world who were invited to drive the F355 as it began its world tour. The excursion began in New York City, and before it's over, the F355 will have traveled 20,000 miles through more than 40 different cities.
Well, this is a bizarre idea that came out of Ferrari, started in Maranello. Perhaps in the past you see a lot of journalists have driven a car and they always say Ferrari is a very high performance car and they're not a car that you can drive every day. But we believe that the 355 is a car that you can drive every day, and the idea has come out to do a world tour. So the car will be on the Ferrari internet and constantly based, so people can check and see that a Ferrari can be driving all the time. It's not something that you have to store in the garage. Especially with the 355. You see that in the car there's every flag from every country where the car is going, and on top of the flag there's the signature of every journalist who's going to drive the car in the world. And also we keep a logbook that every journalist can put their whatever thing they want to put on, how their impression is with the car, even after 30,000 miles, whatever.
Yeah. 40 some odd cities in
That's right.
27 countries or something.
That's right.
It's going to Bangkok?
Yes, yes.
And Brazil?
Yes. At the end of the tour, the car will go back to the United States, and then eventually the car will end up in the Ferrari Museum, which people can see it. It's going to go back to Italy.
Okay, so you won't be selling this as an executive-driven, low-mileage, one-owner demonstrator?
No.
Our Midas tip of the week concerns Dexcool engine coolant. In the past couple of model years, you're seeing more and more cars and light trucks come factory filled with a coolant we refer to as Dexcool. It's a long life engine coolant designed to last 5 years and up to 240,000 kilometers in some applications. That's considerably greater than conventional antifreeze solutions, which were advised to be changed about every 2 years or 50,000 kilometers in most cases. So it gives you an idea of how much reduced maintenance there is with this type of a coolant. However, you should take great care not to mix those coolants wherever possible. In an absolute emergency, of course, you can still add water to that cooling system, or you could add conventional green type ethylene glycol antifreeze if you had to, but now you've greatly reduced the time interval. You're down to 24 months or 50,000 K change intervals. So try and remember to top up that cooling system if it has Dexcool with Dexcool only. You can easily identify it by its pink color. That's your Midas tip of the week.
As this footage demonstrates, car manufacturers have spent years perfecting the airbag. Now that most cars are equipped with them, we've discovered they can be downright lethal, especially to young children sitting in the front seat. Of course, children should be in the back seat, but that's impossible with most pickup trucks. Some vehicles, like the Ford F-150, have a cutoff switch. At the Detroit Auto Show, Mercedes-Benz introduced its CLK Coupe, which follows the popular SLK soft top. Both cars are two-seaters, but is Mercedes going to install an airbag switch?
We feel that it would be wrong to have a switch in the car to turn off the airbag. The probability that the switch is turned off in a situation where the airbag would be needed is too high.
We say we have to find ways to do this automatically, and therefore we introduced for the first time in the world this new system for the children, which are sitting in two-seater cars in the passenger seat, that the weight will not be heavy enough to activate the airbag.
This is the seat sensor mat. You can't see this when it's installed in the vehicle, but this is what it looks like in approximate placement. Now, integrate is an antenna that the system uses to put out a very low power radio signal. And that low power radio signal then is bounced back from the two devices that are on the bottom of the child seat here and reflected back into the vehicle. The system then recognizes a rear-facing child seat is installed, and the passenger side airbag here must be turned off. The lamp on the center console here then is lit.
We have in the SLK, we're going to see next in the SL, and latest by the model year change 98 in all the rest of our models.
But also, every driver has to understand that he has to take the seatbelt, and then with the seatbelt and the airbag, it's the best way to survive in a heavy accident.
Nice job, Mercedes, but you know, it's not airbags that are killing our kids. I'll tell you what is killing our kids later on Kenzie's Corner.
Oh, good van ride.
You're watching Bob Bondurant behind the wheel of a Ford Club Wagon on this race course in Phoenix, Arizona. It is filled to capacity, and he is driving this course at the same speed, or practically the same speed, of a race car. Again, he has full capacity, about 8 people in there, and believe me, they've got lots of confidence with Bob behind the wheel. Now, if only that van could talk. All right, now let's head to the garage and join Bill Gardner.
Brad, if that van could talk, it'd be screaming for mercy. I'll tell you, these race car guys taking a truck like that out and thrashing it on there, I guess they just don't pay for their tires and brakes. But, you know, one thing we're always harping on here on the technical side of this show is regular maintenance and checking of fluid levels. It's very important to the life of your machinery, no matter how you use it, whether you thrash it or drive it easy. But on most vehicles, you've got dipsticks for checking all these fluid levels. Well, here's a notable exception. 1997 Chevy Malibu. The automatic transmission in that vehicle does not have a dipstick for checking its fluid level. Now, that sort of caught our attention at first, and I thought it was kind of an arrogant way to design or build a piece of machinery. But I want to throw a couple of points at you. First of all, when we're talking about fluid levels, there are fluid levels, and the engine oil is one perfect example, that have to be checked and topped up on a regular basis. It's totally normal for an engine to consume a little bit of engine oil between oil changes. You check it with a dipstick and top it up as necessary. However, an automatic transmission is completely different. It's not normal for it to consume its fluid. If it's losing fluid, you've obviously got a leak, and you're going to see some drips on the floor 95% of the time if you've got a problem. There is one notable exception to that, and that's automatic transmissions with modulator valves. This particular car doesn't have a modulator, and if it's losing transmission fluid, you've got to see some dripping or leakage somewhere. If you don't see it, you don't have to check the fluid level. Now, what they've done is they've installed this cap that you see right here in the top of the transmission case, and this is where you fill up or fill the transmission fluid. However, they're telling you in the owner's manual if it's ever down, it's because of a leak, and you should take it to the dealer and have it repaired. Now, while it doesn't sit well with us that they've removed the transmission fluid dipstick from this particular model of car, don't put it past them to pull this off. And I'm thinking of a perfect example. Back in the mid-70s, Delco division of GM came out with a completely maintenance-free battery, the one they call the Delco Freedom battery. They're still using it today, And when they first brought it out, everybody was up in arms because you couldn't check or add electrolyte to that battery. You couldn't get into the cells. They did away with those 6 caps that used to be on the top of the battery. Now, part of the problem was that when guys went in there with a hydrometer, they were damaging the plates in the battery, and they were cross-contaminating the electrolyte with some contaminated fluid, possibly from somebody's failed battery that they'd previously tested. So by doing away with that and making it completely maintenance-free, they eliminated those problems. Now maybe GM's onto something with this transmission fluid deal. You wouldn't think that you could mix up fluids and get the wrong fluid in an assembly, but believe me, it's easier to do than you think. Here's a perfect example. Customer took his vehicle into an oil change place just the other day, a late model Pontiac Grand Prix with ABS brakes, and they accidentally or mistakenly added power steering fluid to the brake fluid system. You can see the 2 fluids have separated out here in this container, but before someone realized it, in the interim, the brake master cylinder had become ruined by this mineral-based fluid. It completely ruined the rubber components in that brake system, and it was a very expensive repair. So it gives you an idea of what kind of damage can occur. Maybe this was part of the thinking when they did away with that fluid dipstick. Time will tell if they can pull it off. Believe me, it doesn't sit well with us, but let's wait and see. Maybe they can do it. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardner for Motoring 97.
A portion of Motoring 97 is brought to you by the Solder Seal Gunk family of automotive products, makers of Puncture Seal Gold and Liquid Wrench.
There's been a lot of fuss made recently about the safety of children and babies in cars. Kids being killed by airbags, people lobbying now for switches to disable the airbag, and of course Mercedes, as you saw earlier in the show, now has a smart child safety seat that automatically deactivates the airbag. But aren't we losing sight of the big picture here? Aren't we joining the Panic of the Month Club? I mean, how many kids have been killed by airbags so far? Well, it's about 50 in all of North America. Now listen, I've got 4 kids of my own. The death of any child is a huge tragedy. But while we're concentrating time, money, and media attention on this little problem over here, we're ignoring a huge problem over here, namely that thousands of kids are killed every year in car crashes. And why? Because either mom and dad aren't buckling them up at all, and that's for the family in downtown Toronto in the brand new gray Camry, and I hope you're watching, or if they are buckling the kids up, they're not doing it correctly. Transport Canada study indicates that 80% of all child safety restraint systems are incorrectly fitted. Either the tether strap's not there, or the belts are too loose, or there's something wrong with the seat itself. Another study from California shows that 70% of all child fatalities are survivable if only the system was installed correctly. So Mercedes-Benz, thanks for this technological solution to the so-called airbag problem. But it's not airbags that are killing our kids. It's the stupidity and the laziness of mom and dad that are killing our kids. So parents, get that child safety restraint system, learn how to install it properly, then use it. Give your kid a chance to grow up smarter than you are. I'm Jim Kenzie.
You are watching North American off-road racing champion Walker Evans, and believe it or not, he is demonstrating tire traction out here on the Arizona desert. Who's going to argue? That's it for now. We'll see you next week for more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
Like, this was break-free. Like, it's a class that where people can like just you know, do whatever they want to do, and it doesn't matter. We don't have to worry about being politically correct. So it's like, okay, yeah, we're basically taking on the stereotypical views of some of the guys taking auto. So it's like, yeah, we're chicks, like you say, and we're taking auto. So check auto.
TSN's Motoring 97 has been brought to you by Quaker State. The big Q stands for quality, always has, always will, and Midas, the way it should be.